Hello, everyone. My name is Salandria Sydney, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the incidents in the life of a slave girl by Harriet Jacobs. The purpose of this book was to expose the realities of slavery, particularly the sexual abuse endured by enslaved women, by sharing their own personal experience as a slave, while aiming to raise awareness and advocate for abolition among the northern population. Jacob wanted to highlight the sexual abuse they endured, which was rarely discussed openly, which means that everything was done privately and it wasn't known to the public. Harriet Jacob wanted to basically not just to get attention from the population, but she wanted to talk to the people that actually went through this as a child themselves, as a slave. She wanted them to be able to see and discuss what it felt like to be a slave. Harriet Jacob wanted to help the people that went through the things that she went through as a slave. She also wanted to speak to the people and to encourage them that if she got through it, that they could get through it too. She was born a slave, and she remained in the slave states for 27 years. Her parents were turned mulattoes, and the definition of a mulatto is a person of mixed white and black ancestry, especially a person with one white and one black parent. She was a piece of merchandise, trusted them for safekeeping, and liable to be demanded of them at any moment. She had one brother who was 2 years younger than her. Her father was a planter in South Carolina. During the Revolutionary War, they were captured on their passage, carried back, and sold to different purchasers. Harriet Jacob was raised by her grandmother. She looked up to her grandmother. Her grandmother was a remarkable person and a remarkable woman in many aspects. She played a major role in her life, and she played a major role in her younger brother's life. She was the daughter of a planter in South Carolina. She was a little girl when she was captured as well and sold to the keeper of a large hotel. Her grandmother shared stories about her as a slave as well, and she passed it down to Harriet Jacob. And Harriet Jacob do remember bits and pieces of the story, but she's not 100% sure of everything and every little detail about the life she lived as a slave. As her grandmother grew older, she revealed the presence of so much intelligence and was so faithful that the master and mistress could not help but seeing it was the first interest to take care of such a valuable piece of property. Her grandmother was faithful. Her grandmother was an obedient servant. Her mistress and master thought very highly of her. She was a cook, she was a baker, she was a nurse, and she was a seamstress. She was well known in her neighborhood as a baker. When her grandmother was done taking care of her daily duties, she would spend nighttime baking for her community and her neighborhood, and she would sell her goods. She had 2 kids that would help her bake at night, and it became a profitable business for her. The money that she made, she saved so that she could purchase more kids. When her master died, the property was divided among the heirs. Harriet Jacob was 6 years old when her mother died. Her mother died on her deathbed. When her mother died on her deathbed, her grandmother made a promise to her mother that her and her little brother would never have to suffer and would never have to want for anything. And she did keep her word on that. So I say this to say Harriet Jacobs really did look up to her grandmother, and she played a very important role in her life. During this time frame of her going through the slavery childhood, she experienced and saw a lot. A little thing, some things that slaves could not do. Slaves could not get nothing to eat except for what they were cooked. So whatever the cook made for them, they had to eat that. Now the cook would get punished if they cooked something for the master or mistress and they did not like it. They would be forced to eat it themselves, or they would be whooped to death. If there happened to be a dish to their not liking, like I said, they would be made to eat this food in their presence. And if they didn't eat it, they would get beat. Dr. Flint, he owned a farm property and residence in town, several farms, and up to 50 slaves, beside a hiring number by the year. What that was, it was like a hiring day for slaves, women and male. On hiring day was at the beginning of the year, which was January the 1st. On the second day, the slaves were expected to go to their new masters. On the farm, they worked until the corn and cotton was laid. If the slave was unwilling to go with their master, they were whipped and beaten to death, or they was locked up in jails until they consented to go and promised not to escape during that year. In the event that they changed their minds, they was whipped and chained, and they were beaten until their body was limped, and they had chains put on them, and they were dragged to the fields for days and days. Sometimes they would be out there throughout the year, and if they made it back, they would be put back out in the fields at the beginning of the year. They didn't have to change masters. They would stay with the same masters, and they were able to still be hired on through the same masters if they lived. A mother would be placed on a cold cabin floor, and basically they watched their kids being taken from them and taken away and sold to other slave traders. The mothers had no idea where their children went to. There was instances where mothers would beg to know where their kid was at, or often they would just ask for their life to be taken instead. It's like a mother instinct for any child. They moaned, they cried, and they was depressed because they didn't know where their kids were. And so they begged and begged and begged to know where they were, and they were never told. And so some mothers would try to kill themselves, or the mother would end up being bought by a man in their own town. And that was pretty much it. So what I got out of this reading, I think that we as African Americans in today's society, we're blessed to be able to go as we please. We're blessed to be able to do what we want without living up under different circumstances, as Harriet Jacobs discussed in this book. When you think about the different life experiences that they went through a lot, and they had no choice but to go through it. innocent kids being born into slavery, not knowing what to expect, had to learn what slavery was back in the days, and basically had to go by being forced, not if they wanted to be a slave, if they didn't want to be a slave, and instead or not, they were a slave. And so I feel like Harriet Jacobs, this was a way to express herself to the people. And she just felt like it was never talked about publicly, and she wanted to express to the people what they went through. So when you read and you look back and you reflect on it, it kind of gives you a different aspect of life. And it makes you be more thankful. It makes you to realize more what happened, and it could have been you in that situation and circumstances. So I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you were able to take from what I wrote about or what I spoke on. Thank you.